I think this is an extraordinary development. My knowledge has been expanded, I don't know how many, 100-fold or whatever, since I've been investigating this case, and I want to talk about that in Amsterdam. And of course, interestingly, quite a number of the participants were taken up in craft, and in some cases, I spoke to one pilot who actually, I mean, he's a qualified pilot who actually flew in one of these things. And there were others, colleagues with him sometimes. And sometimes the aliens allowed them to travel in the craft themselves, but they were always monitoring things, of course.
So, Timothy, why don't we
many photographs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's I mean, that's incredibly interesting, and I want to proceed talking about that and to what level and what extent, we can see this unfold maybe in the coming years, or if there's any time plan here in terms of getting us then, humanity, involved in this process. And in one sense, if they are involved in some kind of recruiting program, if you will, here, that they want our help in this as well.
Yes.
We'll proceed to discuss this here in our next member segment, the next hour. But before we do that, though, we want to obviously mention some of your books. We want to mention your website and talk about a little bit more about the Secret Space Program Conference as well in Amsterdam. But timothygood.co.uk or co.uk, that's your website. You have, as we mentioned, about 11 books out there now. Your latest one is called Need to Know, UFOs, the Military and Intelligence. Beyond that particular book, the latest one, if we have some newcomers with us on the program who are new to your work or even the UFO subject overall, perhaps, what do you recommend in terms of your own writing, Timothy, to that they get their hands on?
I would say many of my books are now out of print. They're certainly available on Amazon's second or third or whatever hand. But I would recommend for people who may not have much knowledge about this subject, but need some really solid type of information, I would definitely recommend my last book, which was published in 2007. And that's Need to Know, UFOs, the Military and Intelligence, as you've mentioned, because that has a lot of information from the military. It has actual official documents, some of them top secret, showing the reality of what we're talking about here. And I've got hundreds, literally, several hundred reports from military and civilian pilots from all over the world. I don't focus on any one country. This is an international. This is global in scale.
All right.
And I think that book in particular should convince the skeptic. But there are some people who are determined that this whole thing is absolute nonsense. I was on a radio interview the other day on a BBC local program, and we were to discuss whether, interestingly, the topic was supposed to be, I was only going to be on for 5 minutes, but it turned out to be longer.
Great. Yeah. Give you a lot of room, huh?
It was the topic was going to be whether it was possible, because up in Lancashire, people have been seeing a lot of these flying triangles, and the debate was going to be, are some of these triangles ours? Could British Aerospace, if they have a big base up in Lancashire, could they be responsible? And I said, yes, absolutely, by all means. But there was this professor of astrophysics from the University of Lancashire who absolutely rubbished everything I said. And I said, Professor, would you mind telling me how many books you've studied on this subject? Silence. He'd read none. He just had decided, without studying the subject, that it was all nonsense.
Oh, of course. That's why he doesn't have to read them. He's already, his mind is made up. Well, but don't bother me with the details, kind of thing. Yeah. Exactly.
That's what Stan Friedman, another physicist, as you know, a famous former nuclear physicist, says. But this was a professor, American. He sounded American anyway. He might have been Canadian. Okay. Professor of astrophysics at the University of Lancashire, and he just was totally disparaging about everything I said, and the debate was supposed to be on whether it was possible that British aerospace were flying some of these things, and he didn't even take me up on that, because I'm quite sure we would both have agreed.
Yeah.
That, some of these things are definitely from here.
Yeah. Well, that's too bad, huh? They bring on the debunker and then just turning against you, whatever you say. That's ridiculous, and that's why I think they give you a breathing room of 5 minutes on a BBC program. That's why people are dropping off from those kinds of channels and actually going online and doing their own research and listening to interviews with people like yourselves, obviously, because they get a whole lot more out of that, if I put it that way.
Yes. Yes.
So that's excellent, Timothy. But we definitely want to continue here now then in the second hour. And once again, I want to remind people to head on over to secretspaceprogram.com and check out our Friends Conference here over in Amsterdam. The 3rd of April, we're going to have some of the other speakers with us as well on the radio show and highlight this particular conference. We are going to be down there together with Timothy Good, Peter Levenda, Richard Hoagland, Richard Doland, and Jay Widener. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to meet with you guys down there as well. So I hope some of our listeners can make it down there, wherever you're from, either if you're from Holland, obviously, or England, Germany, France, or if you're from overseas, elsewhere, from outside of Europe, of course. We welcome you all there. And then, of course, again, timothygood.co.uk is your website. We have a lot to discuss, Timothy, so stay with us, and we'll proceed with more after a short break right here. Stay with us as we proceed with Timothy Good to talk about underground bases, Air Marshal Sir Peter Horsley, and his interesting meeting with an alien in central London, and the subsequent communication with Prince Philip, or the Duke of Edinburgh, about this particular story. This is a very interesting one. We also talk about hacker Gary McKinnon, the establishment and their relationship to UFOs and aliens. We talk about Earth being quarantined, the development of our technology, nukes, and we also go into the area of chupacabras, cattle mutilations, and much more. Join us for the second hour in our members area. All information on how to sign up and access is available on our website, redicecreations.com.